it's an intriguing time that we live in, and I think this idea of the outsider is very prevalent right now on our political canvas right now, and I think it's and what we tend to do as people is that we tend to either demonize or glorify people, and I think we need to be able to humanize people, and I think that's the greatest thing about Othello, that you can put it in the framework of his background and all that, but ultimately, it's a man's tragedy. It's one man's tragedy, and all those emotions are universal and they're human. And I think by doing so, by putting the framework around it, that's to me the most intelligent way of accessing people and saying that, look, it's not a question of who's an outsider, who's an insider, who comes from where and what. In the end, we all have the same journey, our emotional journey, our emotional connections. And I think that to me is a very interesting thing to explore. How does all of that refract through the prism of who you are? Whatever faith you come from, whatever country, culture, whatever, there is a refraction when some information goes through you, it comes out on the other side refracted a certain way. And I think we need to be dealing with that because there's so much impetus now to make us be one or the other. And this distrust that we have of people who we might think or might label as the other is a very interesting thing. And I think that's why Othello becomes a very timely play. And I think Ron has done something wonderful with it by setting it in a time period which is not so far in history that the audience will remove themselves from the dilemmas and the issues of what the characters are going through, by putting it in the time period and giving it the silhouette of around World War I. The fashions, all of that is identifiable to us because we wear pretty much the same kind of clothes and all that. And I think that's a very smart way to access people's minds. And the last thing I will say is that the hope is that it will trigger something, and they won't just walk out and then go to dinner and never think about it. The hope is that this will trigger a conversation on some level.
Well, I want them to take away what is quite obvious, that this is a great play, and that Shakespeare touches our hearts and our minds and our souls and our spirit, whatever you like to call it, like no other playwright, partly because what he does write about is his plays, to my mind, are all profoundly existential. In the sense that characters continually ask, who am I and what is the world that I live in? And I think that genuine question is an important one, and continues to be an important one in whatever time period that we live in. So how do we define ourselves as a culture, as a people? How do we define ourselves as individuals? And that's what those are the questions that I think are important to be asking. But ultimately, it's great theatre. It's as simple as that. We can have these great ideas, these notions of importance and relevance and whatever, but beyond that, it's just good theatre. It's good, as Faran says, it's good storytelling. It's on the edge of your seat storytelling. And a feast, a theatrical feast, and that to me is as important as whatever meanings there are. It's just purely good theatre.